Editor, clip me into the back rooms. Thank you. I got my haircut recently. Wearing this is so much easier now. I just went and saw The Backrooms in theaters on opening night, mind you. So if you haven't seen it yet, spoiler warning, Backrooms spoiler warning, go watch the movie, then come back. But before you leave, allow me to tell you just a little bit about the movie without any spoilers. The Backrooms is quite an interesting movie, and I actually have a lot of comparisons that I'd like to draw between it and Iron Lung in a few respects anyway. First of all, the main key element of the horror, that being the fear of the unknown. But unlike Iron Lung, we're not confined to a sole little submarine in the middle of a blood ocean. We are in an endless expanse of rooms and weird hallways and weird roofways and passageways. But that element of unknown still exists because who knows if something will be around that corner or not. Also, one thing I quite liked and something I really appreciated is that the volume levels of the Backrooms, because horror movies tend to be loud to scare you. Like, they tend to be like, conversations are quiet, there's some like bass and echo going on to make you feel the weight of the room, I guess. Backrooms, on the other hand, was very like middle of the road in terms of volume. It never got too loud. And there was no cheap horror either. I like that the horror was not cheap. That's something you can go into the theater with confidence, knowing that you won't get cheap horror. Because maybe you think, oh, the movie's backed by some kind of studio. I bet the writers and directors and, other people advising Kane Pixels on the script might have all these, traditional cheap horror ideas. No, that's not something you have to worry about. And overall, you can kind of just go into the theater and sit down and take solace in knowing that I'm pretty sure the studio just kind of let Kane Pixels take the lead. Because it felt like there were a lot of shots and a lot of different sections of the movie and a lot of different couple of the plot threads and the way they were laid out that, like, would a studio really let the director / writer person do this? Like, would they really let them get away with this because of, traditional film values and all that? Well, I think they did. I think they just let Kane take the reins and lead the way. Imagine how much better most movies would be if that's just how it was, where the person in charge, the director, I guess Kane is the director technically, if they just let them take the reins. Like, imagine how good things would be if studios were like, okay, we're investing in you, you have the creative control over this, show us what you got. But now it's like, oh no, you have to hit all these check boxes, or we won't fund you or release your movie or anything. There's none of that. There's none of that going on in the Backrooms. I mean, I'm sure some requirements had to be met since there were some, there were some actors in there, some actual like pretty like noticeable or recognizable actors in there. So I'm sure some boxes had to be checked in terms of screen time. But aside from those things, which are just like pretty normal anyway, aside from actor and like production checkboxes, when it comes to story checkboxes, there weren't any. Kane was in charge. He was the one holding the clipboard, writing down the story. So if you haven't seen it yet, take comfort in knowing that is something that I'm pretty sure the studio did. Because that's how it felt. That's what my my movie experience felt like. There were a lot of instances where I just felt like, oh, this is 100% Kane Parsons doing this. Parsons, Pixels, which name am I gonna commit to here? I'm gonna commit to Pixels, because that's the one I've said more. There were a lot of times I was sitting there and I was like, holy moly, I feel like I am just watching Kane Pixels' YouTube series. Like, I feel like I am just watching it. And that might not sound like a good thing, but it is a good thing because his YouTube series about the Backrooms is top quality. If you've watched it, you know that stuff is top notch. So the fact that some of that vibe was captured and brought into the movie was great. And overall, the visuals and the set design and stuff like that were also like very good. Like the way they blended some of the practical stuff with the special stuff was very fantastic. Everything felt like it was there. Felt real. Okay, I think that's enough general spoiler-free stuff. Spoiler time. If you haven't seen the movie, now is your real opportunity to leave. I'm gonna start talking about spoilers right now. Hopefully the Backrooms monsters don't hear me talking about it, or else they'll come eat me. So, the Backrooms. The original post, which I'll put on screen for you right now, was actually a picture of an old furniture store. And lo and behold, one of the main settings, aside from the Backrooms, one of the main settings in the Backrooms movie was a furniture store. And I thought that was an excellent nod. And speaking of that old screenshot, in the opening section of the film, there's a found footage POV style chase going on, and there is a point where our POV protagonist turns a corner, right? And then he goes down a corridor, and it's the exact same corridor as the screenshot. It's a recreation of it, and I thought that was freaking awesome. I feel like a lot of people didn't catch that, but some people in the theater definitely caught it, because I heard a couple of mumbles and reactions and what have you when that happened. Speaking of which, I want to quickly talk about my theater experience. For how full it was, everybody was quite respectful when the movie started. Usually big movies like that, like sure, there was a little bit of chatter, a little bit of mumbling and what have you. But generally everybody was super quiet, and everybody was pretty respectful about everything. I feel like that's how it is in horror movies for the most part, because everyone's kind of just like either talking to sort of keep themselves from getting scared or staying quiet because they're bracing for the horror. So yeah, theater experience was good. And the plot itself, let's talk about the plot of the Backrooms. We have Sir Clark, acted by... I can't think of his name, put it on screen please. That guy. And he's running a failing furniture store, and his life is kind of fallen apart a little bit. His wife left him, and his future fell apart, and he likes shutting people out. And he drinks a bit. He has a tiny bit of a drinking problem. And then just as he thinks, you know, things couldn't get any worse, they get worse. Or at least that's how it seems at first. You think, oh, this guy's life is falling apart, and then he's gonna end up in the Backrooms and get killed by some monster. Oh, so tragic. Well, kind of, but also kind of not. There's a bit of subversion of expectation as to what's going to happen to him that's revealed in the climax that I thought was very interesting. The relationship he had with his therapist and the sort of motions they went through in some of their meetings together, and the way that that was brought full circle at the very end was very clever. Because our guy goes through the Backrooms, and when he discovers it, obviously he freaks out, and then he has his two little assistants come in, and they get murdered. Oh, you can't have a horror movie these days without some teenagers getting killed. It's just how it is. And he just keeps diving deeper and deeper into the Backrooms and finding all this stuff. And then, you know, eventually he calls his therapist and is like, I found the window. I'm opening it and I'm not coming back. And that was an interesting nod and sort of, not a nod, a callback, I guess, to a flashback of when we saw the therapist as a young girl trying to open a window to leave, but you know, her mother didn't let her leave, which was kind of crazy. And her mother was crazy. We saw her in a psych ward in a mental hospital not long after. It might seem like I'm jumping around a little bit here, but that's kind of what the movie does. Like, a flashback will happen, but it's not really clear that it's a flashback, but eventually you put two and two together and realize, oh, that was a flashback. And then another flashback happens, or at least some scene was like set up to be like, oh, this is, you know, information that will be relevant later. And the movie did jump around a lot more than I expected it to, quite frankly. I don't dislike movies that have a bunch of like overarching plots or multiple mini plots or just show you something to put it in the back of your brain for later. I don't have a problem with that, but just for me personally, it's not really my preferred style of storytelling. Now, don't get me wrong, I love it when plots have like, there's one overarching plot that's like, what the heck is going on? And then you see all these different perspectives, and you see all of these plots converge all at once at the very end in this huge climax. So I'm down with the whole multiple perspectives, multiple things going on, they all converge at the end. I'm down with that. But the cuts and the jumps to those different things happening in the Backrooms felt very sudden, and I had some like pretty notable whiplash from it, for lack of better words. I don't think they're bad. I think it just comes down to the fact of like, I did not know what to expect from this film. And that's probably what gave me the whiplash, because like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. I wasn't ready for this. So that's probably why I feel that way. And it's funny because I was just thinking to myself, like a couple days before I went and saw the movie, like, hey, Kane Pixels' YouTube series sort of tells things a little bit out of chronological order. Sometimes we'll see something in one video and it's like, oh, that's weird. And then we see it pop up again in another video and it suddenly makes sense. And I was thinking about that and I was wondering like, oh, I wonder if he's gonna incorporate that style into the movie somehow. And in a sort of way he did it. He didn't, the events weren't told out of chronological order. It's more so were revealed things that don't make sense at first, and then they make sense later, and the dots are connected after the fact. Not due to a lack of chronology, just due to a lack of context, that's all. And I've seen like films that have done this to very limited success. I think the Backrooms does it fine. Like, I don't think I have any major gripes with that part of the story. I think some of the jumps are very sudden, and like, I do slightly question why some of them like are where they are in the film. But they don't break my they didn't break my enjoyment experience. They kind of just raised more questions, and I was like, okay, good. If I'm asking questions, that means I'm invested. But getting back to the plot, and more specifically the actors they did a great job. They did a really good job. I don't know if I said that already. It's almost like I'm struggling to remember. It's almost like the details of the things I've said out loud are becoming foggy and distorted. Oh, wait a minute. The whole idea that the Backrooms sort of like remembers reality, I guess that's the best way to put it. The way that the Backrooms remembers reality in a way that it's all distorted and messed up, because think back to some of your oldest memories. Like, you can make out the major notable details, but some other things probably just look hazy or foggy or not quite right. And, you know, if those details were brought into a 3D space, they would probably look very warped. And the way the movie put it, which I thought was very clever, was imagine describing a dog to someone who's never seen a dog, heard of a dog, knows anything about dogs. Imagine describing a dog to them and then ask them to draw it. Like, they'll get some things right, but there's no way they're gonna get it all right. And I thought that was a great way to sort of convey to the audience the description of how the Backrooms functions. And this is all explained in the climax scene, which I thought was freaking weird, man. I mean, the whole movie's weird, but this scene was like, crazy weird. That whole climax scene where our main character straps down the therapist, like ties her to the chair, and then explains kind of what the Backrooms is and how it works and the creatures that are in there. It's really interesting to me how the approach that Kane took with the whole memory business, like, you know, how the Backrooms works. It's really interesting that the Backrooms entities in the movie are like misremembered versions of people. Some of them have multiple eyes. Some of them look like their face has been like copied and pasted, but like overlapping each other. And then one like eyes over here, eyes down here. It's just, that was an interesting take on what the creatures in the Backrooms could be. And it fits very, very well with the whole memory concept. I did not expect our main character to go a little bit psycho at the end and talk about how, oh yeah, these creatures, you know, they're in here and they don't feel any pain. Sticks a knife in one of their necks. And he's like, you know what else is great about them? You can eat them. And then he cuts parts out of one's belly, and it's just like white fluff or goo or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, why? And then the callback to the opening scene, well, not opening scene, first scene with the therapist, where they did a bit of, you know, constructive role play. And then he does it again, except this time he steals the red hair off of this Backrooms entity and puts it on her. And then they role play out the same scene again, except this time the guy, you know, he doesn't change. He says exactly what he said, and then, you know, just sort of took comfort in that. And then the therapist lost it and was like, screw you, you know, these are all the reasons your wife left you. I can't help you. I can't save anybody. And then the whole, like, you know, you don't have to change, you know, like, yeah, then don't change. Just, you know, let me go type thing. That was kind of interesting, because, like, it's interesting because the therapist told our lead, Clark, that was his name, right? Clark? She told Clark that maybe you don't have to change. And he's like, yeah, okay, I won't then. I won't change then. But then he goes to set her free, and then his pirate self, his own entity self, comes in the room, and you know, he's like, yeah. Then the real Clark's like, you know, yeah, it's okay, it's all good. You know, everything's fine. Then he just eats him. I mean, the entity eats the real Clark, not the other way around. It's interesting that as soon as Clark was like, okay, then nothing changes. Great. As soon as he accepts that nothing will change, his self comes in and eats him, almost as if his distorted, messed up self wants him to change and doesn't want him to stay the same. Almost as if he's reacting to that somehow. Which makes me wonder if the Backrooms entities in the movie actually have reactions to their real counterparts, or if they're just mindless, crazy beasts. Like, it really could be either one. Because instead of progressing as a character, Clark doesn't progress. He intentionally, that's the word, he intentionally doesn't progress. He doesn't change. And then he gets killed. And I think the whole point behind him getting killed there and then, right after he accepted he wouldn't change, I think the point of that might be to show how not changing and not learning and not reflecting and taking in all that's happened to you and trying to figure out a better way forward. I think the whole point of that was to show how if you refuse to change or can't or whatever, then it can really mess you up, like those distorted versions of yourself in the Backrooms. I think that might have been the point. But to try and sum up my thoughts overall about the Backrooms, I really enjoyed it. It was a very weird, strange delve into madness and the insanity of memory and how weird memories can get and how weirdness, it sort of is a thing. It's very weird. Weird is the adjective I use to describe the movie. Weird. The acting was very good. The soundtrack was not overwhelming. The horror elements were actually like very good. All the 3D modeling and special effects, top notch. And if there were ever a person to direct a Backrooms film, Kane Pixels was the choice. He was just the choice. You couldn't choose anyone else. It was weird, it was creepy, it was eerie, it was disorienting, but eventually things in the end like sort of made a bit of sense. And I like that one of the final conversations is talking about how they understand so little about the Backrooms, and it's like, yeah, definitely got that feeling going on, so it's not just me. Would I recommend this film? If you know what the Backrooms is, or even have an inkling of a concept, like even if you've just seen one video or whatever, even if you have a tiny bit of knowledge or at least know of the Backrooms existence, would I recommend this movie? Yes, 100%. Would I rewatch the movie? Yeah, I probably would. And if I were to rate this movie, I'd give it like maybe an 8.5 out of 10. Because overall it was quite enjoyable, and like I said, I would definitely watch it again. So we have the Backrooms and we have Iron Lung. What will be the next YouTuber movie to come out? Place your bets in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe Jacksepticeye will do his turn next. He would probably make I think he actually said in either in a video or an interview once, he would make a Shadow of the Colossus movie, which would be freaking awesome. And as you guessed by my random ramblings, we're at the end of the video now. I'm recording this right as I got back from the theater, basically. I mean, like, I had a short conversation sort of about the movie with someone in the house, but then I immediately came up here and recorded this. And yeah, so if I seem a little bit out of it, or if I'm not as cohesive as usual, that's why. It's because I'm recording it right away. But if you did enjoy this video, and if you enjoyed the Backrooms, be sure to hit the like and sub button. I would greatly appreciate that. Leave all your fresh comments about the movie, well, in the comments. I don't know where you want me to put. Yeah, put your comments in the like button. Yeah, great idea. But if you enjoyed my insane, incoherent ramblings, just like the incoherent Backrooms, and you want to show me a little bit of extra support, consider becoming a channel member or checking out the Patreon. You get access to a whole bunch of exclusive rewards like early video access, emojis, custom Discord roles, uncut director's contents. Did I already say that? I don't know, but be sure to check those out if you like what I do and you want to support me. But that is going to do it for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and yeah. Editor, please get me out of the Backrooms. Thank you.